Let's start with China. Now, what are you seeing in terms of occupancy rates, especially when you compare that to the pre-COVID levels?
Good morning, Haslinda. Morning, Yvonne. Yeah, China's been an incredible story for us. It was first into the crisis, obviously, and as you said, we had over 60% of all of our hotels in the mainland closed. And just last week, we announced that all of our hotels in the mainland are open. So far, month to date, in the month of June, we're at 45% occupancy. I never thought I'd be celebrating a half-full hotel, but that's certainly a marked improvement from where we were. And within that occupancy, it's the leisure hotels that are doing better. In fact, over the weekend, our leisure portfolio was up in the 70 or 80s percentage. So we have seen a pent-up travel demand. Unsurprisingly, in China, it's starting with land transport first, and then it's going into domestic air travel. Of course, we're a long way away for international arrivals in any meaningful numbers, but certainly more than green shoots and some things to be proud about.
Alan, how optimistic can you be about the outlook, given that the OECD said that it looks dire everywhere? The US said it will take years to recover, and we're seeing a second wave of the virus already.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're far from through the crisis, and although I'm celebrating to some extent 45% occupancy in China, we're in the low single digits in the rest of Asia Pacific. But I think what is important to note within the industry is over the last 2 decades, the industry has transitioned from wholly dependent on international inbound arrivals to a vibrant domestic business. So if we look at our portfolio in China, which is substantial, within China, 80% of all of our customers are a domestic Chinese traveller. That's true of Japan. That's also true of the Australasia and particularly the Australian market for us. So although the industry is not going to return to 2019 levels anytime soon, what we are seeing is a vibrant return in domestic business within the medium term, and hotels can more than survive. And to some, particularly, as I say, major domestic markets like China, Japan, and Australia, if the outbound traveller becomes the domestic traveller and the outbound leisure traveller rediscovers their own country, I would go so far as to say that some hotels in those markets will get back to thriving within the medium term.
And Alan, how are you capturing that recovery in China right now? I'm seeing staycation packages everywhere in Hong Kong right now. With the hotels that you have open, have you had to cut your room rates?
Interestingly enough, I don't think it is time for discounting and promotion. Of course, as hotels start to reopen and become competitive, I think there will certainly be hotel deals and people will be aggressive in pricing. What our research has shown us that customers are first and foremost concerned with health and safety. And so the decision to travel at the moment is a decision on what's the safest hotel to stay at, what's the safest mode of travel. As such, we've done a partnership with Mayo Clinic and Reckitt Benckiser to make sure that our customers know that we engage in hospital-grade cleaning. We've made sure that our hotels are digitally compliant and that people can check in using their phones, and that we're conscious of social distancing and have appropriate measures in place. I do think that's the most important thing in the buying decision at this stage. I think when that becomes a market norm, we'll get back to, the regular style of promotion and attraction that you're used to.
And where else, apart from China, are you seeing perhaps signs of pickup right now? We've heard Vietnam saying they're very open to domestic travel now. We see travel bubbles that are forming in the APAC region. What markets are you saying perhaps we're seeing light at the end of the tunnel now?
Well, I think Japan is a large domestic market for us. With the state of emergency getting lifted finally in Tokyo today, we've started to see the Japan domestic traveller return to the fore. We're hearing that Disney and the theme parks will open within the month of July. The Australian school holidays will be important for us as the Australian domestic market starts to travel interstate within that market. To a lesser extent, the large populations of Thailand and Indonesia will engage in domestic travel as they come out of a cycle, but transparently they're a little bit further behind. But relatively speaking, you can follow the logical trends. The larger the population base, the more through they are in the crisis, the more we're seeing the green shoots of domestic demand.
When you take a look at the hotel industry right now, Alan, it is being streamlined and smaller hotels are being put up for sale. Is this a good or bad thing?
I think ultimately it's a bad thing. We certainly don't want to see any owners or investors lose hotels. We want to make sure that the industry is a vibrant industry. Of course, hotels have always competed with residential, commercial, for real estate or asset use. I do think, and we're seeing a not necessarily a rush to brand, but that's what happened in the global financial crisis, as smaller independent hotels sought the protection of the larger brands and their marketing power and marketing engines. We don't want to see negative transactions, and we certainly don't want to see hotels closing. And I would say most of our investors, and in fact, our entire pipeline under construction has come back to work. So although it's been delayed 3 or 4 months, we don't have any hotels that have looked at closing for the longer term. And we don't have any hotels under construction, which for us is a substantial number, that are thinking of not proceeding at this stage. So ultimately, I think it's a risk, but at the moment, the industry's done a really great job in being able to weather the storm.
How do you see COVID-19 shaping the investments in hotels? Does it actually make sense for investors to buy huge hotel chains which have greater vulnerabilities?
Well, I think in the current term, people are sitting on the sidelines. I mean, ultimately, where you build a hotel is a subsequence of demand and supply. So I do think the large domestic markets in the future, or at least in the medium term, for existing assets, should they transact, will be where people would be looking to acquire a hotel. In the longer term, I think the rise of the Asia-Pacific traveler, I think that the pipeline in construction and Asia's ability to rely on inter-Asia travel will see the business return to normal. I think all of the large hotel companies over the last decade have transitioned to be as equally competent with domestic travelers as they are with their traditional inbound travelers. So I think in the short term, it's still relatively unknown. And as I say, people sitting on the sidelines. We have seen some new deal signings and some significant signings and openings already this year, but certainly not to the volumes in terms of signings that we have done in previous years.
So Alan, are you saying for Hilton Asia right now, you're not looking for acquisitions? Some saying this is a buyer's market right now. Things are cheap. Is Hilton Asia willing to open its wallets?
I think never say never in terms of opportunities in the market, but I certainly think it's too soon for large transactions. I think at this stage, the market, as I say, in the industry is structured to weather the storm. We've had a number of partners approach us who would be interested, and we're a hotel management company, so it's very rare that we actually buy real estate. Our primary business is in hotel management, but we've had a number of our existing owners and perhaps future owners that are in the market and looking for opportunities. I think we're 3 to 6 months away from those opportunities coming to the fore, and at the moment, people hopeful that the COVID situation is coming. Let's call it's mid-cycle, and that will come largely to a close by the end of the year.
And Alan, after that 3 to 6 months, I mean, what would be something that would be on your radar? Are you looking for something that's as like a small boutique type of hotel, or something that has a big hotel brand that you would be interested in acquiring?
I think Hilton has brands up and down the chain scale, and locations are everything. So we're always in the market to add to the hotel network and to make sure that we have the right brands in the right places for our customers. Like all hotel companies, there's markets that we're keen to expanding, particularly the major cities and the major Asian centres. But equally, the leisure markets have been extremely strong over the last couple of years. Markets like the Maldives and French Polynesia have done really well. So I would say we're open to opportunities as always, as our investors are. There's no opportunity for any hotel company that we wouldn't look at. But I think certainly it's the key Asian cities that are going to be at the forefront and in the recovery, and therefore will probably command the highest premium.
Maldives is always great, Alan. The other place that we really like is Bali. Before we let you go, give us a sense of how Bali is recovering. When will it finally see, your German tourists coming back, for instance?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think my own favorite destinations seem to oscillate between southern Thailand and Bali and the Maldives, all of which where we've got great hotels. I think Bali particularly is in conversations of travel corridors. I don't think it's going to be anytime soon that we see long-haul European markets back into Indonesia. I think travel corridors, it is more likely that we see mainland China and Australasia into Bali. I know Japan has talked about travel corridors in the medium term into the leisure destination. So I do think both from a pricing perspective, there'll be deals to have in Bali. And I do think that we in Asia Pacific will enjoy the paradise of all the leisure hotels at probably a few months, if not many months, before our longer haul compatriots from further afield in the world.